10 Feng Shui plants millionaires grow at their front door for wealth and luck. Wealth doesn't begin in your wallet. It begins in your environment. And for those who understand energy, not just economy, the doorway is not just an entrance. It's a declaration. Across Asia and beyond, the world's wealthiest, from Li Ka-shing in Hong Kong to private real estate families in Singapore and Beverly Hills, intentionally grow specific trees at their front doors. Not for shade, not for status, but to anchor energy that attracts luck and holds prosperity in place. You might call it superstition. Others call it wisdom older than money itself. Let me ask you this. Have you ever walked into a house and felt something shift? A sense of calm, or pressure, or possibility. That wasn't decoration. That was energy. And now, look at your own home. You've worked hard, but has your home worked with you, or against you? Before we begin, I invite you to pause and leave a comment below. If you could plant one tree to transform your life, what would it be? Your insight might open a door for someone else who's been waiting in silence. Let me share the story of Mr. Li, a quiet businessman in his late 50s. Respected, diligent, but drained. Year after year, his business rose and fell like the tide. No matter how much effort he poured in, luck stayed just out of reach. Until one day, over tea with a Feng Shui master, he was asked a question no one had ever asked before. What's growing outside your door? That single question began a quiet revolution, not just in his garden, but in his fortune. Today, we'll walk through the 10 plants that changed the energy of Mr. Li's life, and continue to shape the wealth of millionaires around the world. Are you ready? Let's begin. 1. Money Tree. Mr. Li recalls a moment that changed his outlook forever. One day, while visiting a lavish estate in Kuala Lumpur, he stepped through a grand entrance and was immediately drawn to a striking money tree positioned just before the door. The tree's braided trunk and lush, coin-like leaves caught his eye. His host remarked, "I planted this money tree when I first moved in. It has brought fortune and success ever since." That simple observation sparked a question in Mr. Li's mind. What secret does this tree hold that could transform one's destiny? In Feng Shui, the money tree symbolizes the steady accumulation of wealth and the unity of elemental forces. Its braided trunk represents the intertwining of effort, opportunity, and timing, while its 5 broad leaves echo the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, each essential for balanced prosperity. Positioned at the front door, it acts as a guardian, catching fortune before it slips away. The money tree thrives in warm, humid climates with gentle, filtered sunlight. It flourishes in regions such as the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and the warm southern areas of the United States. This plant is especially suited for business owners, older individuals seeking stability, young families embarking on new chapters, or anyone moving into a new home who needs protective energy. Notably, prominent figures like Li Ka-shing in Singapore and several esteemed families in Thailand have embraced the money tree. Their success stories serve as a powerful testament to its influence in cultivating wealth and maintaining financial flow. However, improper placement can block its energy. Many mistakenly set the tree in an area where direct sunlight or stagnant air causes its leaves to brown. Others place it too close to a sharp edge, causing the flow of Kai to be disrupted, like money slipping away. To harness its full potential, place the money tree just to the left of your front door as viewed from inside. This aligns with the green dragon side, symbolizing dynamic movement and wealth. Use an earthen ceramic pot and adorn it with a red ribbon to activate its energy. Water it moderately and ensure the plant is dust-free. Every small detail matters when nurturing prosperity. Within 2 months of repositioning his money tree correctly, Mr. Li observed unexpected improvements. Delayed payments began arriving on schedule. And even his tenants renewed leases without dispute. More importantly, his daily sense of calm and trust grew, as if his home were now a reservoir of positive energy. This tree didn't just sit by the door. It transformed the way energy flowed in and out of Mr. Li's life. But Mr. Li soon realized that attracting wealth is only one part of the journey. Sometimes, growth isn't enough, protection is also essential. Would you give this plant a place at your door? 2. Lucky Bamboo. Mr. Li once visited a luxury resort in Chiang Mai. As he walked past the stone archway into the courtyard, he noticed 2 symmetrical rows of slender green stalks, lucky bamboo, lined perfectly on both sides of the entrance. Their tips gently swayed in the breeze, as if greeting each guest with silent fortune. The manager smiled and said, "We don't just welcome guests. We welcome wealth." That moment stayed with Mr. Li. Could something so delicate be powerful enough to change energy? In Feng Shui, lucky bamboo symbolizes balance, resilience, and upward growth. Its structure, hollow but strong, reminds us to remain open yet steady. The number of stalks planted carries specific meanings: 3 for happiness, 5 for health, 8 for wealth, and 9 for complete harmony. Placed before the front door, it acts as a silent conductor of Kai, guiding energy inward like water flowing gently toward the heart of the home. This plant thrives in humid, shaded environments, making it ideal for places like the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, southern Vietnam, and tropical parts of California and Florida. It's perfect for retirees seeking peace, entrepreneurs building momentum, and families wishing to invite harmonious prosperity into their lives. Even apartment dwellers find it a meaningful daily companion. In Taiwan and southern China, many business owners place lucky bamboo arrangements near the main entrance, wrapped in red ribbon and nestled in coins. In Bangkok, a real estate tycoon Mr. Li met claimed he plants them at every new property launch for smooth closings and no delays. However, many make the mistake of overwatering, using plastic containers, or placing the plant in dark corners where Kai becomes stagnant. Some tie the stalks too tightly, blocking their natural upward energy, like forcing success through a closed gate. To apply proper Feng Shui, use an uneven number of healthy stalks, preferably 3, 8, or 9. Place them just outside the front door or to the left as you face out. In a tall glass container filled with clean water, river stones, and a soft red ribbon tied loosely. Change the water every 5 days. After Mr. Li followed this setup, he noticed clients began referring new customers without being asked. Phone calls turned into opportunities, and the overall rhythm of his home and business felt effortless. Mr. Li didn't just plant this tree. He nurtured it like a silent prayer for better days. And within months, something in his home and in his heart began to shift. But as Mr. Li soon discovered, abundance doesn't last without roots. It was time to learn from a plant known for its strength in both fruit and fortune. Would you give this plant a place at your door? 3. Pomegranate tree. Mr. Li had never planted a pomegranate tree. The tropical humidity of Singapore didn't suit its roots. But one autumn, he visited a vineyard estate on the outskirts of Napa Valley. Just past the stone pillars stood a majestic pomegranate tree, its branches heavy with red fruit, glowing like lanterns in the late sun. The owner, a retired investor, said quietly, "This tree has been with us for 30 years. Every time it fruits, something good happens in this house." Mr. Li didn't reply. He simply stood there, watching the wind move through the leaves. What did this tree know that he didn't? In Feng Shui, the pomegranate tree symbolizes fertility, wealth, and generational blessings. Its countless seeds represent opportunity, offspring, and success multiplied. It belongs to the fire element and is often used to ignite fortune during transitions, new homes, marriages, or business expansion. When placed at the front of a home, It is believed to attract both prosperity and protective ancestors. This tree thrives in dry, sunny climates, such as California, southern Spain, Turkey, northern India, and inland regions of Australia. It struggles in overly wet or shaded areas. It's ideal for families building legacies, for those seeking harmony in love and children, or for entrepreneurs who want to plant a long-term vision rooted in spiritual grounding. While Mr. Lee never planted one himself, he studied the life of Sheikh Mansour's family estate in the UAE, where ancient pomegranate trees lined the private residence's walkway. In Cyprus, some wealthy families even host tree blessing ceremonies during full moons, believing the fruit ensures unity through generations. Still, many make the mistake of planting this tree in shade, letting it grow without ritual or intention. Others let the fruit rot on the branches, inviting stagnation rather than circulation. A neglected pomegranate tree doesn't decay silently, it shifts the energy of the entire space. For optimal Feng Shui, plant the tree slightly to the right of your front door, at least 2 meters away from the entrance. Choose a variety known for fruiting well. Offer the first fruit to the household altar or place it inside a wealth bowl. And never let fallen fruit stay on the ground overnight. Though Mr. Lee never planted this tree, he carried its lesson home. Instead of seeds, he sowed actions, clearer intentions, deeper family rituals, and renewed gratitude for what had been passed down. The energy shifted, just the same. Sometimes, the most powerful trees are not the ones we plant, but the ones we understand. But Mr. Lee also knew that wealth and wisdom needed something more than fruit and fire. They needed roots that held fast, and leaves that shielded. Would this tree belong in your garden? Or would its spirit be enough? 4. Schefflera. After reflecting on the fruit-laden pomegranate tree he had once admired, Mr. Lee felt a new question arise. It wasn't just about attracting fortune. He needed something to hold it. He needed roots that gripped tight, and leaves that shielded. That answer came one afternoon, as he visited his older sister's home on the outskirts of Johor Bahru. By the entrance stood a humble plant, glossy, dark green leaves arranged like open fingers. "You never moved this?" he asked. His sister smiled. "The monk who blessed this house told me this plant protects money." Mr. Lee bent closer. The roots held firm in the soil, the leaves still, unshaken, and around it, an unusual calm. Schefflera, known as Schefflera, embodies Feng Shui's quiet principle of preservation. It doesn't call wealth in. It keeps wealth from slipping out. The 5 leaf clusters mirror balance between the 5 elements. Its roots grip the earth like a hand clutching fortune, and its wide leaves offer silent shelter from energy leaks. In families that already hold success, it becomes the plant of protection. This plant thrives in tropical and subtropical climates: Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, southern China, and parts of Florida and Hawaii. It enjoys steady airflow, indirect light, and regular, but not excessive, watering. It's best for homeowners who have already achieved a degree of financial success, those entering retirement, managing multiple properties, or noticing that their income no longer feels safe. It's also a quiet ally for family businesses that span generations. In Hong Kong, it's often placed beside private vaults. In Taiwan, a gold merchant Mr. Lee once visited kept 3 Schefflera at the left, right, and center of the gate. And in Singapore, discreet millionaires use it not for luck, but for retention. But like all Feng Shui tools, misuse reverses its power. Some let the plant grow wild, disrupting the flow. Others place it in metal containers, suffocating its earth energy. And worst of all, they leave it dying in plain view, a symbol that wealth is slipping, not held. To apply it properly, place the Schefflera slightly to the right of your front door as viewed from inside. Choose a wide ceramic pot with depth and weight. At the base, embed 3 smooth river stones. Once a month, Gently wipe the leaves with salt water to remove stagnation and revive its protective field. Mr. Lee didn't expect miracles. But after one season, surprise costs dwindled. His monthly spreadsheets, once chaotic, now showed consistency. More than money, he felt clarity. The kind of clarity that only arrives when what you earn stays. This wasn't a tree of excitement. It was a tree of silence, of standing still while the winds of fortune blow. But Mr. Lee knew that stillness wasn't always enough. Sometimes, to be respected, your energy must rise and be seen. Would you let this quiet sentinel guard your doorway? 5. Podocarpus. Mr. Lee had just been invited to a private tea ceremony held by a retired general in Chiang Rai. The estate was quiet, almost solemn, but what caught his attention was not the koi pond or the calligraphy scrolls. It was the tree standing tall beside the front gate, slender, upright, dark green needles, layered like armor. Podocarpus, the general said, following his gaze. In this house, it guards not money, but respect. In Feng Shui, Podocarpus, also known as Buddhist pine, represents spiritual authority, enduring reputation, and protective energy that shields the soul, not just the home. It belongs to the wood element but carries the stillness of earth and the wisdom of wind. This tree doesn't flow with fortune. It stands for who you are when fortune comes. Podocarpus thrives in mild, subtropical climates, like Vietnam's central highlands, Taiwan, Hong Kong, southern China, parts of Japan, and California's temperate hillsides. It prefers morning sun, clean air, and minimal disturbance. This tree is perfect for scholars, high-level professionals, spiritual leaders, and those who hold legacy, not just income, in their hands. It's especially suited for homes that serve as a base for leadership, not just living. In Kyoto, ancient Zen temples plant Podocarpus as spiritual guardians. In Hong Kong, you'll find them outside high-level court buildings. And in Vietnam, old families place them near ancestral altars, believing they hold the energy of those who stood tall with integrity. Common Feng Shui mistakes? Cutting it into decorative shapes, planting it in cramped corners, or surrounding it with flashy decor. Podocarpus is not a tree for display, it's a tree for declaration. When disrespected, its energy withdraws completely. To align it with its highest power, plant it slightly forward from the front entrance, left or right, depending on land shape, but always in full view. Use a stone-bordered base. Avoid pots unless absolutely necessary. Never crowd it with other plants. And never, ever hang things from its branches. Mr. Lee didn't plant Podocarpus immediately. But months later, when he felt his name rising in certain circles, when influence began to find him, he returned to the memory of that gate. And when he finally placed one outside his home, something shifted. People listened more. Invitations came unasked. And within, he stood taller, without needing to prove anything. This wasn't a tree of wealth. It was a tree of presence, of earning respect without noise. But Mr. Lee soon remembered, power, when unguarded, invites challenge. Even leaders need sanctuary. Would you plant a tree that reminds you who you are, before the world tells you who to be? Mr. Lee took a moment to breathe. He looked back at the 5 trees now guarding his entrance. Each one, a silent ally. One calls wealth in, one balances the flow, another preserves, one brings respect, and one reminds him who he is when no one's watching. They weren't just plants, they were energies. And Mr. Lee began to realize, this was not just about growing trees. It was about growing alignment. But a new question stirred in him. Once wealth arrives, how do you keep it soft? How do you keep it sacred? The next 5 trees would not chase fortune. They would invite stillness, and with it, clarity, peace, and roots deeper than gold. Let's keep going. 6. Olive tree. a symbol of peace, longevity, and quiet prosperity across civilizations. Mr. Li had never considered planting an olive tree. It wasn't native to his land. It didn't appear in classic Feng Shui texts. But that changed after a visit to Tuscany. He was staying with a friend, an architect turned vineyard owner, whose estate overlooked the Golden Hills. Every morning, they passed under 2 olive trees that flanked the front path. "They've been here longer than the house," the friend said, "and we've never had to rebuild a thing." In many cultures, the olive tree symbolizes endurance, peace, and divine balance. Though not rooted in traditional Chinese metaphysics, its essence mirrors deep Feng Shui principles: longevity, protective growth, and stable grounding energy. With its silver-green leaves and slow, deliberate growth, the olive tree teaches one thing: lasting wealth is not loud, it's patient. This tree thrives in dry, sunlit regions: coastal California, Greece, southern Spain, Morocco, Israel, and inland Australia. It needs open skies, generous light, and minimal interference. It's ideal for those in transition, retirees seeking a slower rhythm, families moving from urgency to grace, or anyone choosing sustainability over speed. It's not a tree for results. It's a tree for peace. Mr. Li's friend, who once ran a high-powered firm in London, had planted his olive trees after leaving corporate life. Not for decoration, but for grounding. And every year, they harvested a small batch of oil, gifted only to family. Mistakes often come from impatience. Planting it in damp, shaded soil leads to slow decay. Surrounding it with synthetic grass or metal fencing disrupts its ancient earth signature. And cutting it too young can stunt its message. That strength comes from time. To invite its energy, plant the olive tree to the right of your front path, ideally in open air with generous spacing. Let its base breathe, surround it with natural stone or gravel. Never rush its pruning, and when it bears fruit, share it with someone who brings peace to your life. Mr. Li didn't bring an olive tree home, but he brought its rhythm. He started waking earlier, eating slower. He simplified a room in his house and made it quiet. And within weeks, the pressure in his chest lightened. Not because he gained something, but because he let go. This wasn't a tree of ambition. It was a tree of return. To self, to breath, to meaning. But even in peace, life offers challenges, and Mr. Li would soon discover a smaller tree, compact, powerful, and full of unexpected luck. Would you plant a tree not for what it gives, but for how it changes you? 7. Dwarf pomegranate, small in form, abundant in spirit. Mr. Li had once admired the large, fruit-heavy pomegranate tree in someone else's estate. But this was different. Small, silent, meant for someone starting fresh. There was a quiet corner in Mr. Li's garden where nothing seemed to grow. Not cursed, just forgotten. One morning, while walking through a weekend plant market in Singapore, he saw it. A tiny pomegranate tree in a clay pot. Barely 2 feet tall, already flowering. The vendor said softly, "People overlook this one, but it never stops giving." Mr. Li bought it, not out of logic, but instinct. In Feng Shui, the pomegranate represents fertility, opportunity, and wealth that multiplies. Its seeds are symbols of potential, each one a door to something unseen. The dwarf variety carries the same meaning, but in a humble frame. It teaches that abundance isn't always grand. Sometimes, it fits in the palm of your hand. This tree thrives in warm, semi-dry climates, places like Southern California, parts of Arizona, the Mediterranean coast, and subtropical cities like Hong Kong and Singapore. It prefers morning sun and well-drained soil. It suits those who live in apartments, smaller homes, or shared spaces, newlyweds, retirees downsizing, even students beginning a spiritual journey. In parts of Greece and Turkey, the dwarf pomegranate is placed near front steps during the new year. In Japan, some shrines keep it near entryways to bless those who feel forgotten or starting over. Mr. Li learned that a single pot on a window ledge could bless an entire home. But mistakes happen. Overwatering causes root rot. Placing it in constant shade prevents fruit. And worst of all, many treat it like decoration, forgetting its soul is active, not ornamental. To use it wisely, place the tree in a ceramic pot on a small platform just beside your front door. Offer water with mindfulness. If it fruits, never let them drop and rot, pick them before they fall. And once a year, gift one fruit to someone starting a new path. Mr. Li didn't expect much. But months later, that quiet corner felt different. His guests often paused there. He paused there. Tiny fruits began to grow, bright red, firm, surprising. He smiled. Maybe it wasn't about the size of the tree. Maybe it was about remembering that small blessings grow, too. This wasn't a tree of prestige. It was a tree of presence. It reminded Mr. Li that energy finds us, even in overlooked corners. But as seasons shifted, he found himself longing for something quieter still. A tree that didn't bear fruit, but held space for contemplation. Would you welcome a small tree that grows quietly, just like you once did? 8. Dwarf citrus tree, a sunlit invitation to joy, clarity, and the arrival of good people. It was the first day of Lunar New Year when Mr. Li visited a meditation center in Chiang Mai. The villa grounds were calm, wrapped in mist, but just before the stone steps, 2 potted citrus trees, bursting with golden fruit, the abbot greeted him with a gentle bow. People think we meditate to chase wisdom, he said, but sometimes, wisdom comes through laughter and sweetness. He handed Mr. Li a small fruit. Eat it before you speak today. In Feng Shui, citrus trees, especially oranges, kumquats, and calamondins, represent clarity, renewal, and joyful abundance. The round golden fruits mirror coins. But more than wealth, they draw helpful people, light energy, and emotional freshness into the home. This tree doesn't pull fortune. It brightens what's already there. Dwarf citrus trees grow best in warm, semi-humid climates, southern China, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, parts of California and Florida. They need morning sun, open air, and occasional pruning. They're perfect for those entering a new phase of life, moving, launching, or recovering. Also ideal for families welcoming guests, or anyone wishing to clear emotional fog. In many cultures, these trees are placed at entryways during the new year to welcome harmony. In Singapore, Mr. Li noticed, high-end villas often kept them year-round, not for tradition, but because the house feels brighter. He remembered the fruit the monk gave him. It had no seeds, but it left a lingering sweetness. Mistakes? Overcrowding the pot, letting the soil dry too long, or trimming too harshly after fruiting. Some people even tie red ribbons without intention, making it festive, but energetically chaotic. To align with its Feng Shui power, place the tree in pairs, flanking your main entrance. Choose clay or ceramic pots, not plastic. Pick fruits when fully orange, not green. And once a year, share the first ripe fruit with someone who needs a fresh start. Mr. Li brought 2 trees home that spring. He didn't make any announcements, but neighbors smiled more when walking by. A former client returned unexpectedly, with not just thanks, but a new opportunity, and somehow, even the air near his door felt lighter. This wasn't a tree of deep roots. It was a tree of soft light, of freshness, of arrival. But even light has a shadow, and Mr. Li was about to meet a tree that stood in silence, guarding everything that came before. Would you plant a tree to remind you that beginnings can taste sweet? 2. 9. Cypress, a living prayer for protection, memory, and legacy. Mr. Li didn't expect to feel much on that hill. He had come only to light incense for his late father. But as he stood at the edge of the ancestral cemetery, something pulled his eyes toward the tree behind the stones. A tall, ancient cypress, still, upright, rooted like a sentinel between worlds. It didn't move, it didn't shimmer, but it felt present, like it was watching, not growing. In Feng Shui and ancient cultures, the cypress tree has long symbolized guardianship, longevity, and spiritual protection. It's known not for what it gives, but for what it stands for. Endurance, family lineages, the sacred weight of memory. In some temples, cypress wood is used for altars because it absorbs energy without distortion. This tree grows best in temperate climates with well-drained soil: Italy, Greece, China, the southern US, and the dry highlands of Vietnam and Korea. It thrives on wind, light, and silence. It is best suited for homes that carry ancestral energy, houses passed down, or built with intention. It's also deeply supportive for those who've lost someone, or those who lead families quietly from behind. In southern Europe, cypress trees are planted to mark sacred ground. In parts of East Asia, they're placed at the edges of homes to act as silent guardians. Mr. Lee learned that the most powerful trees often grow where no spotlight reaches. Common mistakes? Planting them too close to doors, trimming them for symmetry, or worse, cutting them down to modernize a yard. Cypress is not ornamental, it's ceremonial. Disrespecting it disrupts not just energy, but remembrance. To honor its Feng Shui role, plant it slightly behind or to the side of your home, never in front. Let it stand alone, never pair it. If possible, light a small candle beneath it once a year, on the date of a loved one's passing, and never rush near it. Approach slowly. Mr. Lee didn't speak to the cypress on the hill, but when he returned home, he planted one near the back fence, not for himself, but for those who came before, and perhaps those who would come after. This wasn't a tree of today. It was a tree of forever. It reminded him that not all energy is meant to move. Some is meant to stay. And as he lit incense one quiet evening, he felt something behind him, not a presence, but a continuity. Would you plant a tree not for your future, but for the ones who gave you a name? 10. Dragon Tree, a silent sentinel of power, rooted in stillness, crowned by fire. By this point, Mr. Lee had already changed his home. Energy flowed smoothly, prosperity arrived quietly. Guests noticed the harmony before even stepping inside. But something still lingered in the back of his mind. He didn't fear loss. He feared imbalance. That sudden shift when growth comes too fast, and the foundation can't hold it. Then one evening in the hills of Tenerife, he saw it, rising from stone, branches thick like ancient arms, rising toward the sun. No flowers, no fruit, just presence. It was a dragon tree. In Feng Shui, the dragon symbolizes protection, vision, and power that doesn't roar, but watches. And this tree, named for its blood-red sap and mythic strength, carries the same frequency. It doesn't attract energy, it disciplines it. It says, only what's aligned may enter. Dragon trees thrive in warm, dry climates, places like the Canary Islands, Southern California, the coasts of Thailand, Dubai, Vietnam's sunny regions, and gated villas in Spain. They survive heat, salt, wind, and time. This tree is not for everyone. It's for those who already hold power, and now must guard it. For architects of legacy, silent leaders, the kind of person others turn to, but rarely understand. In elite villas across Ibiza and Dubai, you'll find dragon trees flanking stone paths, not for show, but for sovereignty. And in one coastal retreat Mr. Lee visited, the host whispered, "When chaos rises, I sit beside it. It tells me what to ignore." The biggest mistake? Planting it too soon. Without intention, it becomes rigid. Without space, it suffocates. Without reverence, it withers, not from neglect, but from being misunderstood. To honor its power, place a single dragon tree beside your main gate, left or right. But never both. Let it stand slightly apart from other plants. Surround its base with black river stones. And never decorate it. This is not a tree you dress. It is a tree you bow to. Mr. Li planted his last. Not to welcome, not to attract, but to guard. He didn't expect compliments. He didn't need them. But from that day on, decisions came easier, and silence felt fuller. This was not a tree of beauty. It was a tree of sovereignty. It didn't offer fortune. It protected clarity. And as Mr. Li looked across the 10 trees he had chosen, he realized he hadn't just planted wealth. He had built a dialogue between earth and sky, between effort and essence. Would you plant a tree not to bring more in, but to make sure what you have never slips away? 10 trees, 10 lessons, 10 gateways to energy that doesn't knock, but waits for the right door to open. Mr. Li stood quietly outside his home one evening. No rituals, no incense, just silence. He didn't feel rich. He felt clear, like his home was breathing in rhythm with something bigger. These weren't just plants at the front door. They were the guardians of intention. A reminder that wealth is not earned only through effort, but through alignment, awareness, and care. And now, the question is not, which tree should you plant? The question is, which energy do you need most right now? If these words stirred something in you, it's time. Like this video, share it with someone on their path, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next step on this journey will open the gate to Feng Shui secrets even the ultra-rich rarely reveal.